Every December, while you're struggling to pay for presents, one man is quietly raking in over £1 million from a single song. You hear his voice blasting from every shop, radio, and Christmas party, but what most people don't realize is that Noddy Holder's annual Christmas payday hides decades of devastating secrets. At 79, the man behind Merry Xmas Everybody has survived band warfare, cancer that nearly silenced him forever, and missed opportunities that could have changed rock history. The truth about how he got here is absolutely heartbreaking. When Slade exploded onto the scene in the early 70s, Noddy Holder wasn't just another frontman. His voice was a weapon that could shake entire stadiums and turn any song into an anthem that crowds would scream until their throats were raw. From Come On Feel the Noise to Mama We're All Crazy Now, every track he touched became pure gold. But while fans saw the glitter and the glory, behind the scenes the pressure was eating him alive. By 1973, Slade had conquered Britain, but Noddy was already feeling the weight of constant touring, endless recording sessions, and living out of suitcases for years on end. The band was a machine that never stopped, and he was the engine that powered it all. What kept him going was his loyalty to the three men who had stood by his side since 1966. This same loyalty would soon cost him the biggest opportunity in rock history. The rise wasn't just about talent, it was about survival in an industry that chews people up and spits them out. While other rock stars of his generation fell into drugs, alcohol, and self-destruction, Noddy managed to stay grounded. He valued family, routine, and humor even as the chaos of fame swirled around him. But staying level-headed couldn't protect him from the burnout that was slowly consuming him from within. What nobody saw coming was how one song, written years before it became famous, would become his personal goldmine and change everything forever. Here's what will blow your mind about Merry Xmas Everybody. This song doesn't just earn Noddy money at Christmas, it generates between £500,000 and £1 million every single year. That's more than most people earn in their entire careers, flowing into his bank account from just 3 minutes of music recorded 50 years ago. The story behind it is equally incredible. In 1967, 6 years before it became famous, Noddy had written a completely different hippie-style track. Jim Leah's auntie suggested they create something like Happy Birthday, a song people would need annually. Noddy took that idea and transformed it into what he now calls his nice pension plan. The original lyrics were trippy and weird, but when Christmas inspiration struck, he rewrote everything. Every time you hear It's Christmas booming from a speaker, Noddy gets paid. Radio plays, streaming services, advertising campaigns, cover versions, licensing deals, it all adds up to a financial empire built on 3 words. The song has sold over 1.3 million copies in the UK alone, but the real money comes from royalties. Supermarket playlists, radio stations, Christmas movies, TV commercials, every usage generates cash. But this Christmas goldmine came with a devastating price. The success that made Noddy wealthy was simultaneously destroying the brotherhood that had created it. Behind the scenes, tensions within Slade were reaching a breaking point that would tear them apart forever and expose the dark side of rock stardom. Noddy Holder has been brutally honest about why Slade imploded, and his explanation is shocking in its bluntness. According to him, there are 5 things that destroy every rock band, and Slade suffered from all of them: egos, money, drink and illicit substances, women, and musical differences. This toxic combination was like slow-acting poison that eventually killed the brotherhood that had made them unstoppable. The egos came first. Success breeds arrogance, and when you're selling millions of records and packing stadiums, it's easy to forget you're part of a team. Each member started believing their own hype, and collaborative decisions became brutal power struggles. Creative meetings turned into wars, where everyone fought to have their vision dominate. Then came the money disputes. When millions of pounds are flowing in, everyone wants their fair share, and arguments about royalties and publishing rights created permanent rifts between men who had once been like brothers. The substances were everywhere in the 70s rock scene, and while Noddy avoided the worst of it, the temptations were constant and destructive. Women became another source of conflict as relationships formed and broke down under the pressure of constant touring. But the final nail in the coffin was musical differences. The creative vision that had united them began pulling them in opposite directions, with some wanting to stay safe and others pushing for artistic risks. The breaking point came with their 1975 film Slade in Flame. While critics loved its gritty, realistic portrayal of the music industry, fans expecting glam rock fun were shocked by its dark themes. Guitarist Dave Hill hated the project, creating a rift that never fully healed. In 1980, when AC/DC's legendary frontman Bon Scott Duffigs suddenly, the band desperately needed a replacement. They were on the verge of becoming one of the biggest rock acts in history, and they wanted Noddy Holder to be their new voice. Imagine that for a second. Noddy Holder fronting AC/DC during their most successful era, Back in Black, Thunderstruck, and Highway to Hell could have been sung by the man who gave us Merry Xmas Everybody. The offer was legitimate and serious. AC/DC's management approached Noddy directly, knowing his voice had the power and range to fill Bon Scott's shoes. This wasn't some casual inquiry. They wanted him to join one of the most successful hard rock acts of all time, right as they were about to explode globally. But Noddy said no. Out of loyalty to Slade and to bandmates who had shared his journey for over a decade, he turned down what could have been the biggest gig in rock history. AC/DC went on to sell over 200 million albums worldwide with Brian Johnson as their frontman. The financial rewards alone would have dwarfed even Noddy's Christmas royalties, potentially making him one of the wealthiest rock stars alive. This decision reveals everything about the man behind the voice. While other rock stars chased fame and fortune without regard for relationships, Noddy valued the bonds that had built his career. He couldn't abandon the people who had stood by his side, even for an opportunity that could have changed his life forever. But that loyalty couldn't protect him from what was coming next. In 2018, Noddy Holder received news that shattered his world. Doctors diagnosed him with esophageal cancer and delivered a prognosis that was brutally simple: 6 months to live. For a man whose voice had been his trademark, his livelihood, and his identity for over 50 years, throat cancer was the cruelest possible fate. The voice that had roared through decades of rock anthems and Christmas celebrations was under attack from within his own body. What happened next revealed the true character of the man behind the legend. Instead of falling into despair, Noddy faced his potential death sentence with the same humor and determination that had carried him through decades in the brutal music industry. He started cracking jokes about not needing birthday cards and approached his treatment with a mindset that doctors later credited as crucial to his survival. The treatment was experimental chemotherapy at Manchester's Christie Hospital, and it was absolute hell. Noddy lost all his hair, his weight dropped to just 8 stone, and every day became a battle for survival. The man who had once commanded stages in front of thousands was reduced to fighting for his life in a hospital bed, weak and vulnerable. His wife Susan watched him go through agony while trying to stay positive for both of them. She later confessed that privately she went through hell and back, but she never let Noddy see her fear. Together they faced the possibility that the voice of Christmas might be silenced forever, but somehow, against all medical predictions, Noddy pulled through. The experimental treatment worked, and the man given 6 months to live defied every odds stacked against him. Even in his late 70s, after surviving cancer and stepping away from the spotlight, Noddy couldn't escape controversy. In 2020, vicious rumors began spreading that his former bandmate Dave Hill had cruelly fired drummer Don Powell by email after 50 years together. The story painted Hill as a heartless villain who had abandoned a longtime friend when he needed support most, and fans turned against him with brutal fury. But Noddy wasn't having it. In a recent public appearance, he set the record straight with characteristic bluntness. According to Noddy, the story was completely false but had become accepted as fact despite being untrue. Don Powell was recovering from serious knee problems and couldn't play drums safely. Dave had taken medical advice warning that continued touring could leave Powell crippled for life and confined to a wheelchair. The truth was that Dave Hill had made a difficult decision based on medical recommendations, trying to protect his longtime friend from permanent disability. Powell's memory problems from his 1973 car crash meant he couldn't remember the medical consultations, making the situation even more heartbreaking and complicated. This revelation shows that even decades after leaving Slade, Noddy still feels fiercely protective of the men he shared his career with. He couldn't stand by and watch Dave Hill be destroyed by false accusations when the real story showed a man trying to protect his friend. It's the same loyalty that made him turn down AC/DC, still operating in a man approaching 80 years old. The controversy highlighted how legends become targets for rumors and lies, but it also proved that Noddy's sense of justice remains unshakable. Today, at 79, Noddy Holder lives quietly in his Cheshire mansion with his wife Susan and their son Django. His days of stadium tours and endless recording sessions are long behind him, but his voice still reaches millions every December when his Christmas anthem returns like clockwork. The man who once gave everything to rock and roll now treasures the simple pleasures that fame often destroys: peaceful mornings, family dinners, and the knowledge that he survived when death seemed certain. His annual Christmas royalties continue rolling in, providing financial security that most people can only dream of. But the real treasure isn't the money, it's knowing that his voice became woven into British culture itself. Every year, families across the country sing along to words he wrote decades ago, creating memories that will outlast generations. In 2023, Noddy returned to the stage for the first time in years, performing with Tom Seals and proving that his voice, though changed by age and illness, still carries the power to move audiences. The man who was told he had 6 months to live was back doing what he loved, on his own terms, at his own pace. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about Noddy Holder isn't his wealth, his survival, or even his legendary voice. It's that after decades in an industry that destroys most people who enter it, he remained fundamentally decent. The loyalty that cost him the AC/DC opportunity, the humor that carried him through cancer, and the sense of justice that made him defend Dave Hill. These qualities define him more than any hit song ever could. Every December, when that familiar roar fills the air, we're reminded that some legends really are built to last forever. What other rock legend would you want to hear the untold story about? Drop your suggestions in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more shocking music revelations that will change how you see your favorite artists.